Hi, David Allman here. So a few days ago, I uploaded a video. It was a longer video in which I played and taught whatever interesting thing came as I was playing. And the response was pretty positive, and I enjoyed doing that kind of video. It was not as much editing work. It was more of a one-on-one type of thing, and it was very enjoyable for me. So because it seemed to be enjoyable for you guys too, I decided to continue until you guys say no more. So I'm going to try to make this a weekly thing, and we'll see what happens. One thing that I would like to suggest and ask is I'd like to put all these videos in a playlist, and I want to organize my channel in a better way to serve you better. So that means going back 1,000+ videos to really organize in a way that makes sense to everyone. So I'm working on that. But in the meantime, this new format where it's a longer video, unedited, where I'm sharing with you things as I play them, I'm going to center that around tips and quote unquote hacks, things that you can bypass to go straight to the musicality. Where you have your guitar, you're following along, more of a one-on-one experience. I want to organize these into a playlist, and I'd like to name that playlist. I'd like to give a name to that new series of videos. So the name for the, we'll call this a show, if you'd like. So I'm taking suggestions below. If you have ideas, leave them below, and we'll see what comes up. Anyways, today I decided to talk to you about chords. Something that I learned in my career that I think is going to serve you quite a bit, and you don't have to memorize tons of chords. Let's take a look. When I started playing, I remember trying to memorize all these open chords. The E minor was the first one that I learned, actually, because it's really easy, and then graduated to the G major, the C, and all these open positions that are useful if you play acoustic guitar and you want to accompany yourself singing. Those are basic chords, and that's the main use of these chords, really. Today, I hardly use these. It's good that I know them, but those are not, I think, the chords that really give you the biggest bang for your buck. When I'm playing, I rarely start with these basic forms of chords. I would most likely play some different voicings, such as this one, and then blend with that some melodic phrases. That kind of thing, right? It's a little more sophisticated than just playing like that. It's a different style of playing, and it very much blends the aspect of what a rhythm player would do with what a lead guitar player would do. I remember when I was in my teens, mid-teens, when I was kind of getting comfortable with the electric guitar, I had this thought that you were in one of two camps. You were either a rhythm player or a lead player. I always wanted to be a lead player because I thought that was the most prestigious one. But really, as the years went by, I realized that it really shouldn't be seen like that. You should be both together. When I say should, that actually, it's not true. That's for me personally. If you consider yourself a rhythm player, there's nothing wrong with that. Or a lead player, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to get all these bad comments like I usually do when I say something that is so certain like that. But that's not the point. The point is, I feel more complete as a rhythm/lead player. So both together are blended. And you can hear that in my style of playing. If I do something like this, you hear some chords, right? But you also hear some melodic placements, some lead type of thing. Right? And that got developed when I stopped playing in bands where there would be two guitar players, an assigned rhythm player and an assigned lead player. Just by kind of necessity, I had to fill both of these things. Nothing wrong with bands with two guitar players as long as they have their defined roles, which might be the topic of a different video. But anyways, as I was doing that, I realized that blending the lead playing didn't really work with these open chords, because I would have to go from this area of the fretboard with all these open chords, lower, and if I wanted to add some lead playing in there, there'd be a lot of moving around like that. Lower for the chords and higher for the lead, and that didn't really transition very well. It didn't sound very smooth when I was playing. Jimi Hendrix is a guy who I listened to a lot growing up, and he helped me. The song Little Wing is a great example where you have all these chords blended with all that lead work, and everything was contained in a single area of the fretboard. When you played a chord, he would complement that with lead ideas that would be in the same zone of the fretboard, the cage system. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So my main tip is for you to not grab a book of chords and memorize all these chords and practice them as in, all right, now we're going to play the A7 in all the different positions. And so forth. But instead, extract from whatever scale you're working on some chords. And don't worry about knowing the name. So let's take a look at this. We talked about that a little bit previously. If you have a chord, every note of that chord has a function. And that function is given depending on the root that is in the back, the foundation. So if I play an A major chord in this position, the bar position, it sounds like A major because every note, if I play them individually, is defined according to that bass in the back. Without the bass, and if I just play a note by itself, that's just a sound. You don't know what it is. Now, if I play that note with that bass, which is A, well, it sounds like something. It has a function. In this case, a major third. It doesn't matter if you know what it is or not. Just know that a note by itself doesn't mean anything. Now, if I play that note with something in the back, that note becomes something. Maybe something tensed, like it is now, or something not as tense. The note changes meaning because there's a change of bass in the back. And understanding the role of a note and how a note sounds and the emotional value that note has because of its placement according to the bass is key to being closer to who you are as a musician and really express yourself. So back to our scale. If you have a scale, let's take, for example, an A major scale. The position of the scale doesn't matter. That's something proper to guitar players, but if you ask a piano player which position he'd rather use, it's not going to make much sense. Positions are just slices of the fretboard that are used to help guitar players memorize those positions. But in the end, it doesn't matter. Regardless of which position you're playing in, the scale or the key is going to be exactly the same. Because those notes that you're playing, we're imagining that they're played in context of something else. And it's that something else, the root, that gives all these notes an emotional value. So if A is the root, you just have to imagine that playing over a backing track or with a looper will help, but if you just imagine that this is the reference note, every note you play is going to be in reference to that. Right? And that's what gives that value. Now, if I play that scale, in a different position, and I change the root, then all these notes are not going to have the same roll. They're going to have different rolls because now our bass could be maybe E. So if I have E now and I play the same scale, and I play E in the back, then I'm going to have something like this. Right? Different sound. Because the bass notes changed, therefore the roll of each of these notes changed. Why am I telling you that? I'm telling you that because chords, in essence, are intimately linked to scales. A chord, in order to be what it is a series of notes played at the same time. And these notes are all played in relation to something else. And the role of these notes played together are harmonious. They work all together. They're a team. They're on the same team because they're all measured to whatever that bass is. And that's why they work. If they weren't, then it's like a clash of chords. It's like two armies that are opposing each other. They're not working together. It's like hearing, let's see, a D major chord. So these notes are all measured, have their role given because they're in relation to that D. It works together. Now, if I played that chord, if I recorded that, for example, and on top of it, I would play another chord that wouldn't have much to do with it, like a D flat minor, for example. D flat minor. If I recorded that chord on top of that one, I'd have two armies that are clashing together. The D major army with the little soldiers, which are the notes measured according to the team they're on. And then I have another team that is measured according to that B flat. And now imagine if I played both together, you hear the clash, right? So, all that to say that a chord is extracted from a scale. It needs to be in the same scale. Remember earlier I told you that you don't need to learn all these well, actually, I didn't say that. It would be nice for you to learn them, but there's another way, especially when you get into more complex forms of music, and when you're the only guitar player, and maybe sometimes you don't have a chart to read. You don't have the chord progression to read. That's okay. I do that all the time, and people think that, man, he's heard that tune before. I don't. I'm just relying on that knowledge that notes by itself are part of the same team if they're relating to the same bass in the back. Now, the bass is played by the bass player. That's his role. I'm not going to take that. I'm not performing a solo piece alone. If I'm in a band, if I'm in a gig, whether it's a church gig or an open jam or whatever it is, I've got the band in the back. I don't need to carry that role over. All I need to do is to know the mother scale. So let's say that you ask for the key and they say it's an A major. Great. So you know your A major scale. Those are your team members, the notes. And all the different positions, you can play them, but there are 17 notes. I can take any of these team members, any of them that are extracted from whichever position I'm in this case, the first position of A major. I'm using the caged system, but you can also use the 3-note per string system, whatever system you want, and select any number of members of that team. I like to do 2 or 3. You don't need more. And if we have this scale, if you visualize the scale, you can select any of these team members. Obviously, they have to be on different strings in order to be played together. So let's say that, well, I'm going to select this one. This one is going to be on active duty. This one and this one. And these three together, played together, create a chord that is going to work in relation to that bass. Beautiful chord, right? What is it? On top of my head, I don't know. Will it work? Yes, because I selected members of that team. That works. You can do that with any combination. And then if you want to be even fancier, you can go from one team member to the other by playing melodic lines. As you're doing this, you're making your selection. So I'm playing my scale melodically. Take your time, it's going to sound even more powerful. It's going to speak to the audience a lot more than if I were to just... This speaks to guitar players, not necessarily to the whole audience. And as I'm doing that, I'm taking mental note of, okay, that team member is going to work in my team, in my little squadron. This one too. So I've got this one. And I'll use that one too. So I've got these. I'm going to let the bass do its own thing if I'm playing with the band. And I know that that's going to work. It's going to sound super fancy. And people are going to think, what is that chord? And you say, I don't know. But you know that they're part of the same team, so it's going to work. And then you complement that. That's another little squadron there. And you can do that with all the different positions. And that's how you can create beautiful melodic lines that are going to be closer to who you are as a musician. And you're going to express yourself a lot more effectively than if you were to memorize all the chords. Okay, well, I've got an A major 7, A minor 7, A minor 7, major 7. All these things are useful, but if you don't use them and apply them, they're not. And the fastest route to applying these different chords is to extract them from the source, from your scale. So this works with any key. Don't say that you are in a G Dorian context. And this, by the way, I visualize my G Dorian position. These are part of the same team. That's my first squadron. That's my second one. And these are extracted from my scale position. And again, that's how you can explore and be more comfortable with the keys that you're working on. Now, obviously, when you're playing with a band, this happens all the time. I don't play outside very often. The few gigs that I've had in the past few years were at my church where I played. Not because I don't like to play out, but I don't always like to play out. It's got to be the right conditions. Maybe I'll make a full video on that. But if there's a song that's going on, the bass player is not going to be static there, unless you're doing a funky type of jam. Then the bass player might vamp on something. But if you're creating a song, let's say that it's a song in G major. So that's the keyboard might play that, or the second guitar player. You leave them with those hard chords to play. G major, E minor, C major, and D major. That's every church's songs, right? You always have to have a G, an E minor, a C, and a D, which is, again, a whole different topic, which kind of bugs me that it's that way. But anyways, the bass player is probably going to follow those: G, E, C, and D. So the song is in G major. So you, as a painter, a musical painter, you're not going to just play those G major, E minor, C. That's boring, and that place is already filled probably by the lead singer who's going to have an acoustic guitar and play those. Your job is to paint over that, so you know that it's in G major. I'm going to take my G major scale. I'm going to play that a little higher on the fretboard, because this area right there is cluttered by the bass player, the rhythm acoustic player, maybe even the synth. So you're going to go a little bit higher to create more spacing and difference in your mix. And this is applied to any music, right? Like I mentioned the church gig, but no, that's not the only one. Anything. You've got your G major scale, you select this position. Okay, those are your, that's your team. Those are the members of your team. And you're going to visualize that, visualize my position, and select some of the notes. So remember, the bass player continues. So keep that in mind. Except that it'll be lower because it's a bass player. And you are going to create some chords by selecting some of the members. It's all going to work. That sounded crappy here because I'm using my voice for a full backing track. But it will work. And if you're playing alone, you can do the same kind of thing. Let's move positions here, shift here. Selecting your team members. And eventually you graduate to other positions. Let's move to an E minor. So that's the idea today. I hope that you like it, and make sure that you rewatch this video several times with your guitar to gather different ideas and experiments with me with that concept. And if you have any topic suggestions, leave them below. Happy to take those, and I'll see you in the future video, which will be in a few days most likely. So thanks so much. Subscribe to this channel, share it around, like it, comment below. I'll see you next time. Thanks. Salut.